Billionaires are hoarding piles of cash, CNBC. And then it goes on to break down, as the Financial Times reported over the weekend, as well as the Telegraph, elites are hoarding gold at a record level while using paper put options and paper naked shorts to try to artificially drive down the price of gold. And that's all come out now. That's admitted, but we're going to get into why they're doing it. So billionaires are hoarding piles of cash. That's just one article out of about 200 dealing with that. We're going to be breaking it down. Here's another stack. 130,000 Syrian refugees, Christians fleeing ISIS, seek refuge in Turkey, who's openly financing ISIS. And the bombing campaigns have begun by Barack Obama, the Peace Prize winner, supposedly against ISIS. But the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria have said, no, this is a pretext to move forces in and take down Assad, which is what it is. And Israel shot down a fighter bomber, a Syrian fighter bomber that was bombing al-Qaeda positions on the Syrian-Israeli border in the Golan Heights in Israel, shot it down. Israel shot it down. Where to start here with all of this over-the-top news? Here is the New York Times. Ebola cases could reach 1.4 million within 4 months, CDC computers estimate. Now, we were talking about 100,000 by December being called fearmongers a week ago. But now they're saying 1.4 million in 4 months. The computer models show between 500,000 on the low end to 1.4 million on the high end, with upwards of 90% of those that get it dying. Now, you got to know, when they claim there's only like 3,000 dead so far, that's a whitewash number, even though that's the biggest outbreak ever. So on the low end, to be technical, it's 550,000. To the high end, 1.4 million. AP is also reporting that. That's some of the news we're going to be getting to here today. Obviously, airstrikes by the U.S. and, quote, allies hit ISIS targets in Syria. These are approved targets by the president, but it appears to just be dummy targets. They're not actually striking anybody, or they may be striking other errant Islamicist groups that aren't under their control out of the whole smorgasbord, hodgepodge scramble of different Wahhabist jihadis from different parts of the world, as far away as Chechnya and as close to home as from Iraq and Syria, joining in on the head chopping and the blowing up of the churches and the non-radical Islamic centers. Very disgusting to see all of this unfolding. And as we expected, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations yesterday came out and reiterated again that this is about bringing down Assad once they've kicked al-Qaeda out of the country, who is their main fighting force. Now, it's a smokescreen to attack Assad. Assad has said that. The Syrian army has said that. Now the major Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria are in the news today saying that indeed this is nothing but a smokescreen to move U.S. forces, including boots on the ground and NATO forces, into Syria to topple the regime. Airstrikes by U.S. and allies hit ISIS targets in Syria. The United States and its allies launched airstrikes against Sunni militants in Syria early today, unleashing a torrent of cruise missiles and precision-guided bombs from the air and sea on the militants' de facto capital of, how do you pronounce that, Raqqa, and along the porous Iraq border. American fighter jets and armed Predator and Reaper drones flying alongside warplanes from several Arab allies struck a broad array of targets in the territory controlled by the militants known as the Islamic State. American defense officials said the targets included weapons supplies depots, barracks, and buildings the militants used for command and control. Tomahawk cruise missiles were fired from United States Navy ships in the region. The strikes are a major turning point in President Obama's war against the Islamic State, who he started arming 4 years ago, and open up a risky new stage of American military campaign. Until now, the administration had bombed Islamic State targets only in Iraq and had suggested it would be weeks, if not months, before the start of the bombing campaign against Islamic State targets in Syria. Of course, a week and a half ago, the so-called moderates were all meeting in a building in Syria, and it got blown up. Raqqa is the name of the city. Raqqa. So we can't believe any of this. There's lots of videos of the familiar cruise missiles being launched off the decks of destroyers. Islamic State attack on Iraq base leaves hundreds missing, shows Army's weakness. The Army base in Iraq's western Anbar province has been under siege by Islamic State militants for a week. So when a convoy of armored Humvees rolled to the gate, the Iraq soldiers at camp believed saviors had arrived. But this was no rescue attempt. The vehicles were driven by militants on suicide missions, and within seconds on Sunday, the base had become a bloody scene of multiple bombings. That's the kind of stuff going on over there with Islamic State, allowed to have a base in Syria and now turning it against Iraq. Islamic State has now put out a taunting speech calling for the killing of civilians and calling for attacks in the United States and Europe. And, of course, this will be used, as we predicted. It wasn't hard to predict. We predicted years ago that the radical Islamists being given Libya and Syria and areas of Iraq and areas of Africa would then be allowed to attack the West, and then they would take more of our freedoms and legitimize the NSA spying and the microphones and sculptures in Chicago and Austin, Texas, and the Stingray system stealing our cell phone data and listening to us without warrants in lifetime. It'll all be used as why we had to give our freedoms up, even though in plain view, criminal elements of our government armed them. That's why this is so important. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at who headed up al-Qaeda, this is just al-Qaeda rebranded with a whole new generation that's been trained. Guaranteed, those Western so-called leaders of ISIS you saw are working for Western intelligence agencies, MI6, CIA, Mossad. It's on record that Adam Gadon was a Western operative heading up al-Qaeda. Do you really believe these people are following Westerners and not knowing who gives them weapons, who gives them Stinger missiles, who gives them intel? And it's their job to produce scary videos and to go around and do all this bad stuff, so then the West can wind up useful idiot jihadis who are being commanded by ISIS, who will really think they're attacking America, to blow up schools, shoot up schools, attack shopping malls. And then they're going to say, we got to have points inside shopping malls, and that's it. Everybody's got to turn their guns in. If no guns are allowed, then there's no way that Ahmed Habib Rajaga, made-up name, could have gone into the gun shop and bought the weapons. I mean, you can see the scripting. You can watch it happen. And you notice I told you 4 years ago when all this started, what would then happen? Now they're doing the preconditioning for the low-intensity asymmetrical attacks. I think it's going to be with guns. And this is, they're going to take our guns. This is how they operate. So get ready for it. Get ready for it. Now, you have to understand, Egypt is the only Middle Eastern country that's a former Western ally that is not basically trying to bring down Syria right now in that whole region. Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the NATO countries, the United States are all aiding the jihadis, the al-Qaeda IS, to bring down Syria. That's 95% of the fighting force. Mainstream news says 65, 70%. No, it's 95%. And they just go, oh, you're the non-radical Islamists. Here's the weapons, 600 tons of them last year, and then they hand them right to al-Qaeda. But because the public woke up to that and the military woke up, they now call them ISIL and all the rest of it. Well, the public didn't buy that, so now they're doing some bombing of them. Let me tell you who was really bombing IS yesterday. Syrian aircraft in the Golan Heights near the Israeli border, fighter bomber coming in low in fierce battles with al-Qaeda. AP reports that. In fierce battles with IS. And Israel shot down the Syrian aircraft. First time that's happened in 30 years, AP reports. 30 years since that happened. And now Israel is saying they did it on purpose. They say it came a little bit in their airspace. The people out there that support Israel just mindlessly, Israel's diverse. Israel has a lot of different political views and 5 or 6 political parties. Even if you aren't against Israel or pro-Israel, you need to be able to criticize Israel when it's doing bad things. Just like I don't like our government arming ISIS. I don't like Israel giving field support to ISIS and the jihadis and medical support. That's been in the Israeli papers for a year, that Israel is supporting the jihadis to bring down Syria. And the argument's, well, we don't like Syria. What, to then turn it over to the jihadis? That's how you completely lose the moral high ground. And people know I've not been a critic of Israel, but I tell you, this makes me want to throw up. Just like it makes me want to throw up about Saudi Arabia, but what do you expect? Or our corrupt government. Look at this article out of Euronews. Syrian fighter jet shot down by Israel over the Golan Heights. First such incident in almost 30 years. Israel shot down a Syrian fighter jet over the Golan Heights. Syria has described the shooting as an act of aggression. Think so? Earlier, the Israeli military said it appeared the Syrian plane had crossed by accident into Israeli-controlled airspace over the Golan Heights. The area has been the scene of fierce battles in recent weeks between the al-Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front and the forces of the Syrian government and President Bashar Assad. So that's what's really going on when you try to bomb ISIS. Not when you go out and bomb a couple of Toyota trucks parked on a hilltop. Looks completely rigged. Here's another one. U.S. allies hit militant targets in Syria, kill 11 civilians. Press TV. I mean, who knows if any of that's even true? Pentagon cites new terror threat as ISIS war gets underway. Shadowy terror group used to justify illegal and unconstitutional attack in Syria. ISIS, Turkey's tool for reestablishing the caliphate. You know, I got to hand it to him. I remember when Glenn Beck and others were having Jerome Corsi and other people on talking about a caliphate and the plan to launch one with Turkey behind it. And I'm like, give me a break. A new caliphate or Ottoman Empire, and now it's happening. So I'm not always first to say something, and I'm not always right. I mean, I just can't believe how bold the West is to openly fund these groups, turn them loose in 6 different countries at least, and then turn around like we're stupid and say we're going to arm them to fight them. I want to talk first-time callers, military, police, people in Israel, people in Syria, people in Lebanon, folks in the Middle East. You can get through on the lines. We'll go to you first. You got to dial your country access code in this toll-free number, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. I want to hear from you on this subject. We'll go right to your calls when we come back. But am I wrong? I mean, should Israel go ahead and just bomb Damascus? How about nuke them? Israel has nukes. Why not just nuke Damascus? That's a more loving death than turning it over to al-Qaeda, to every Christian, non-radical Muslim, and Jew have their head chopped off. I mean, is it anti-Israel or anti-NATO or anti-America if we don't nuke Syria right now and raise the al-Qaeda flag over the White House? Maybe I've been radical. Maybe I've been an extremist. Maybe these policies are good. Maybe 2 + 2 does equal 5. Maybe Obamacare is free. Maybe there are no death panels, even though they admit them. Maybe NSA spying is good. I mean, maybe fluoride in the water is good. Maybe I've been wrong. Maybe Al Sharpton isn't a disgusting demon. I mean, come on. Maybe Bill Clinton tells the truth. Maybe water's not wet. Maybe Santa Claus is real. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Edward Group. Today I'd like to talk about the war on women. You've experienced and heard about the benefits of super male vitality. Now, the new formula has arrived. Introducing the new Super Female Vitality. I have specifically designed this formula to help the body naturally regulate itself without the use of artificial hormones. Key ingredients chosen from the highest quality sources. Each of these ingredients works synergistically with the female body in order to maximize overall vitality. You've heard the reviews and the feedback on how the original Super Male Vitality has revitalized relationships. Now, both the man and the woman can have the revitalization in their own bodies with Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality. Secure your Super Female Vitality today from our limited stock at InfoWarsLife.com.
Again, if you live in the Middle East or you've lived there or you've been in the military over there and you want to give us your take on what's really happening with bombing ISIS after you supposedly give them 600 tons of weapons in the last year, hundreds of tons of weapons before that, and then the U.S. ambassador to the UN admits 2 days ago that this is all being done to topple Assad. Of course it is, who is basically the arch enemy of these people and hadn't really done anything to anybody. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. And then coming up, billionaires are hoarding piles of cash, CNBC reports. The Telegraph reports the elites are also hoarding at an accelerated rate of over 200+% in just the last 3 months of buying gold bullion and bars. I'm going to give you my take on what's happening behind that. More on Ebola cases could reach 1.4 million in 4 months, CDC estimates. That's not Infowars.com. That told you that a long time ago. That's the precious New York Times. So now it officially happened because they said so. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com, None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com.